The girl stayed overnight at her friend's house, and in the morning she disappeared without a trace. The bedroom window was wide open. All her belongings were left in the room. The police began their search, but none of them even suspected what dark secrets they would have to uncover in the small town. Amanda Lanca was born on June 7, 1991 in Tennessee. She grew up in a large, close-knit family with several brothers and sisters. Later, they moved to Spring Hill, Florida with their parents. Amanda attended the local high school, enjoyed dancing, writing poetry, playing multiple musical instruments, and was a very positive person. During school breaks, she always went to stay with her grandparents, who lived in a small town called White Cloud. White Cloud was a quiet and peaceful place with only 1,400 residents. Most of its inhabitants knew each other well. Children played unsupervised, and no one worried about their safety. In 2004, when she had just turned 13 years old, Amanda went to spend the whole summer at White Cloud. She spent time with friends, roamed around enjoying her vacation days until June 20th, when she stayed overnight at her best friend's house. They talked and laughed together before going to bed late at night. In the morning, when her friend woke up, she found that Amanda wasn't in the room anymore, and the bedroom window was wide open. She searched through the entire house, but couldn't find Amanda anywhere, despite all of her belongings, including clothes and backpack, being left behind in the room. Her friend told her parents about Amanda's disappearance, who then contacted her grandparents. But after searching several streets, calling other friends' parents, nobody had seen or heard from Amanda. That's when relatives decided to involve law enforcement, as they knew that Amanda wouldn't leave without informing anyone, especially not dressed only in pajamas. Investigators first spoke with Amanda's friend, who mentioned that she didn't hear anything unusual during that night, nor did Amanda mention any plans of leaving. At that time, there were also present at home friends' parents along with siblings, brother and sister, none of whom heard or saw anything suspicious. Police tried finding witnesses living nearby, but it led nowhere, as no resident noticed anything strange during nighttime. On day one of investigation, detectives concluded that most likely girl left home on own accord, since there were no signs of struggle inside. Plus 5 people didn't hear anything out of ordinary, which made it hard for scenarios involving abduction, while not waking up sleeping friend just meters away from where she vanished, causing disagreement among relatives, who insisted that everything seemed fine back home for Amanda, and how excitedly looking forward spending summer break entirely within White Cloud area. Moreover, pointing out fact how girl left behind all personal items, including clothing, inside friend's room, making police version appear like runaway decision taken wearing solely pajamas, leading once news spread across county, receiving numerous calls reporting sighting missing teenager into authorities' hands. People said they had seen a similar girl in different places. This only reinforced the detectives' belief that Amanda had run away from home, but they could not confirm any of these leads. Investigators decided to check the girl's computer, hoping to find some information there that could help in the search. They found correspondence with a certain boy, and based on this, the police assumed that Amanda had run away to meet him. However, there were inconsistencies here too. The correspondence did not mention anything about a possible meeting, and it was focused on ordinary everyday topics. Nevertheless, this was enough for the investigator to once again confirm their correctness. At this point, they did not disclose all the details of the investigation, but information about the correspondence with a certain guy spread throughout the city. Because of this, many local residents also began to think that the girl simply ran away from home. Meanwhile, her relatives posted flyers and gave interviews to various media outlets. They insisted that Amanda could not have run away on her own initiative, and that the police were not putting in all efforts into finding her because of this misconception. The investigators indeed did not utilize all their capabilities fully. If they officially treated it as an abduction case, they could have involved the FBI and other agencies in the investigation process. Instead, they were convinced that she simply left home, and therefore searched for her half-heartedly. They still failed to find any significant clues about Amanda's possible whereabouts, and this case dragged on for several weeks. On July 5th morning, mushroom pickers went into woods located approximately 10 kilometers from White Clouds when, to their horror, they found a human body there and reported it to police immediately. Investigators arrived at scene and understood right away before them lay Amanda Lanca wearing same pajamas she disappeared from friend's house in. Later, medical experts officially confirmed her identity, as well as determined she suffered multiple blows by heavy object leading up death night she vanished. Detectives concluded victim died elsewhere, then brought over dead body into those woods. They couldn't find any substantial lead, so first thing decided was interrogating everyone who knew girl. Over next few days, cops questioned around 400 people, which made almost one-third entire population of White Clouds. Investigators even used polygraph test, but yielded no results whatsoever. They also decided re-examine closely boy whom Amanda exchanged messages online with, since his nickname included word killer. Police considered possibility victim might have actually gone meet him where he killed her. However, versions still had many discrepancies. Nothing negated fact. Hardly likely girl would go out meet someone middle night just wearing pajamas. Besides, no hints personal meeting present within messages exchanged between them. Investigators never managed to identify person behind nickname. Soon version involvement ceased being considered. Attempt get new leads. Detectives resolved to examine everything belonged to Amanda, and it bore fruit, and her personal diary was found, in which there were very alarming information. Shortly before her death, Amanda wrote that a certain man had been harassing her. The next few pages were torn out, and investigators suspected that the name of this person was written on them. This diary immediately became the main lead in the case, and the police tried to establish the identity of this man. They talked to all of Amanda's friends and asked if the girl mentioned what had happened. Several of her friends admitted that she did indeed tell them about it, and even named the man. It was Cecil Wallace, stepfather of that same friend with whom Amanda stayed overnight. For detectives, this came as a real surprise. They searched for the killer throughout the city and beyond its limits, but ultimately perhaps the criminal was in the same house as his victim. However, just statements from friends were not enough to arrest him. Investigators did not have any substantial evidence against this person. No DNA sample was found on the victim's body, and there was no information in court documents about whether she had been subjected to violence or not. Detectives questioned Wallace, but he denied his involvement in these crimes. Police themselves wondered how a man could discreetly carry out all this in a small house where his wife and 3 children slept. In any case, without solid evidence or confession, they could not detain Wallace, so detectives continued processing all possible leads. Soon after, an interesting fact emerged. It turned out that Wallace's sister Candace worked at a police department dealing with Amanda's case. Furthermore, she actively helped her brother and his family during interrogations, literally telling him what to say and how to behave. But that wasn't all yet. 5 years ago, she had been fired from another police department for falsifying an accident report involving her brother. She wrote that he hit a deer while driving down road when actually he was drunk, causing an accident. By then, other detectives were already handling Amanda's case, casting doubt on objectivity. Local law enforcement investigation. However, they couldn't confirm anyone else besides Candace helping Wallace. Investigators questioned both men several times along with members of their family, but none yielded results. They continued searching for any leads, but eventually stretched over several years. During this time, Wallace's family complained multiple times to police about vandals attacking their home because townspeople unequivocally considered him murderer protected by his own sister, causing much discontentment. Negative sentiments only intensified by fact Wallace's continued living freely among them for years after murder. 2008 detectives sought help. Washington National Center Missing Exploited Children, who sent their investigation investigators, White Cloud reviewed materials, conducted new interviews, attempted to discover new leads, ultimately reached same conclusion: local authorities, insufficient evidence, make arrest. 3 more years passed, and in 2011, the police finally got a new lead that changed everything. A 27-year-old woman from Texas, who grew up in White Cloud, came across news about her old town on a website. There she stumbled upon information about Amanda's murder and began to investigate it. After reading that the victim had stayed overnight at Wallace's house, the woman decided to contact the police and tell them something troubling. In 1998, when she still lived in that town and was 13 years old, she stayed overnight at Wallace's house because she was friends with his second foster daughter. In the middle of the night, a man entered their room and assaulted both of them. He then threatened them into silence. The victims were too scared to go to the police, so they never told anyone what happened. But after learning about Amanda's case as an adult victim now herself decided to reach out to the police. Furthermore, she wrote a statement to the police, which helped investigators get closer to arresting the suspect. They interviewed many female residents of White Cloud, who theoretically could have been affected by Wallace's actions. And this tactic worked. They managed to find several women who admitted that he had harassed them between 1998 and 2002 when they were aged between 13 and 16. Gathering all this information together in October 2011 led to Wallace being arrested by the police at age 43 for charges related to molesting these victims, as well as officially designating him as a suspect in Amanda's case for first time. Knowing what other women had revealed, detectives no longer doubted his involvement in murder. At his preliminary court hearing, bail was set at $150,000, which somehow he managed to pay, likely with help from sister or other relatives. The trial was scheduled for next month, but while awaiting it, Wallace returned work. Locals, unhappy he'd been released on bail, repeatedly picketed company office demanding his dismissal. On November 10, the day of first trial, unexpected turn occurred. Wallace failed a peer-appointed time, prompting immediate search announcement by authorities. Hours later, car found nearby woods where man took own life. Detectives unprepared such development continued investigation, obtaining warrant, search home, trying find anything linked crime scene, examined every corner, tore down some walls, removed floorboards, yet failed to uncover any significant evidence. Shifting focus onto suspect sister Candace, convinced covering brother wanted know if Aware killed Amanda, collected necessary proof, arrested August 2019, charged intentionally misleading, investigation just beginning. During probe discovered Candace shielded brother times dealing illegal substances, moreover taught leave behind traces crime scenes. The woman showed him how to properly wipe his fingerprints from surfaces so that experts couldn't lift them. Candace also advised him to always carry a cigarette with someone else's DNA to plant at the crime scene if necessary. Detectives also concluded that at least 9 people knew about Wallace's crime but remained silent. All of us were members of his family. However, the police never managed to prove their guilt. The investigation into Candace's involvement continued for 2 years until 2014, when she made a deal with the police. She confessed to lying to investigators, and in exchange, 2 other charges against her were dropped. The thing is, Wallace's sister could not provide consulting services on the case she was working on as a police officer. By helping her brother pass interrogations, she violated this rule, and ultimately faced punishment only for that. Meanwhile, Candace continued to insist that her brother was innocent in everything. The court sentenced the woman to 30 weekends in jail. It is such a questionable practice, where convicts must be inside the prison building only for 2 days a week, and can freely roam outside during the rest of the time. Such sentences act as some kind of compromise measure. If a person commits some minor offense, they may be assigned several weekend stays in jail. This way they receive punishment, but it does not greatly impact their life. They can continue going to work and spending time with family members. Of course, Amanda's relatives were extremely dissatisfied with this decision. They, like detectives, were convinced that Candace helped her brother avoid punishment, but it could not be proven 100%, so she got away with such insignificant punishment. Amanda's family was forced to go through yet another trial. In 2004, medical experts handed over only part of Amanda's remains so they could hold funerals. The rest have been kept by detectives during investigations, but after Wallace's death, it was decided these remains should be given back to relatives. In 2013, Amanda's family had an exhumation done in order to bury her again.